once again to IBECC 2018, where we're very glad to have you. My name is Professor Jim Arnold. I'm from the University of St. Thomas in Minneapolis. And do you know where Minneapolis is? Yeah. You do? Excellent. No, that's all right. That's okay. That's okay. Right now you're in a better place than Minneapolis. We just had 14 inches of snow. So before we continue, I'd like to have my colleagues introduce themselves to you.
All right, hello, I'm Carrie Penman, and I'm the Chief Compliance Officer of NAVEX Global, which is an ethics and compliance company based in Oregon, but I'm based here in the Boston area. And I've been in the ethics and compliance space for about 25 years, and I'm happy to be here with you guys.
Thank you.
Robert McNulty from Benton University. I work at the Hoffman Center for Business Ethics, Director of Programs there. I also have a nonprofit organization that focuses on ethics and in particular on peace building with Afghanistan. And delighted to be here.
Thank you. Excellent. This is our largest IBECC, as you know. We have 39 teams, and in 22 years, this is our largest event. So we're thrilled to have you. I've been on the board of IBECC for 7 years now, and involved with IBECC for about 12 years. And it is a great organization. We're thrilled that you are involved with us this year. We are reading a list of rules to every team before they begin. You have seen these rules because they are on the website. This is just verbatim from the website. We just want to have level playing field for everybody. In this part of the competition, you are taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to the judges. Please make sure everyone knows who you are and who we are before you begin, and you'll have a second to tell us. You will have 25 minutes with a 5-minute cushion to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem, and to recommend a solution that passes muster on all 3 counts. During this time, you will not be interrupted by the Americans. When you are finished, the judges will ask you questions for about 20 minutes. During that Q&A, we are going to stay in whatever role that you are assigning us. We want you to stay in the role that you are taking as well. The ethical aspects of your analysis are the most important part. However, these should be described in a simple, practical, common sense fashion. Using technical, philosophical terminology or basing your argument on religious or theological grounds is a major weakness. Similarly, any member of the team reading or his or her part will also be considered a major mistake, although you are allowed to use notes. During this presentation, every team member of the team that's up here must have some sort of speaking role. Do you have any questions for the judges before we start?
Yeah, okay.
Tell us, you're okay? Tell us who you are, what is your role, and then tell us who we are. Who are we?
Okay. So we are ethical consultants hired by the shareholders of Uber. That it's going to be your role.
And we are the board?
Yeah, the shareholders. So yeah.
Are we shareholders or the board?
No, shareholders.
Shareholders.
Yeah.
We're a group of shareholders. Okay.
Major shareholders.
Major shareholders.
Yeah.
Great. Welcome to IBECC again. Thank you, and please begin.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for receiving us today, 8th of June of 2017. We are glad to be here in San Francisco in this beautiful day. We are UNAV Consulting, and we know that you might be slightly worried for the situation that is going on right now in Uber. But we want to assure you something, that Uber has a bright future ahead of them, and also that despite the scandals and the image that is being projected through these scandals, there is a solution, and that we're going to revert this situation through a strong and ethical corporate culture. So now, let me introduce you to the team. UNAV Consulting is composed by Alba, our ethical counselor, Pepe, our legal expert, and me, that I'm Javier, and that I'm focused on finance. So this is the agenda that we'll be covering today, and that is going to start through something spectacular. We have the testimony of an Uber worker, an insider that is going to provide us, and that has helped us to dive deep into Uber, and also to learn what is going on and to propose different actions and solutions that we want to introduce to revert the situation that Uber is going through. So without further delay, I want to introduce you to Ercuden Urutathi, that is an Uber driver in Chicago, and that has been working with us for the past 6 months. Ercuden, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Javi. Thanks for having me. I am very glad to be here to share my story. It all started when I had my 3rd kid. As any parent, my husband and I were very focused on giving our kids the best possible opportunities. And that's why we decided to start saving for our college tuition. Well, but my husband already had a very tough job, so I decided I wanted to be the one to step up and make my kids' dream come true. When I was looking for the type of job that I wanted, my top priority was work-life balance. I wanted to be the best mom that I could be by being there for my family, and then I heard about Uber. What a wonderful company. It was perfect. It had it all. A growing future, a bright future, and flexible hours, and then all I needed, I already had a car and a cell phone. How simple as that. That's how my journey with Uber started. It was so exciting. My kids were so happy to hear all these stories about the people that I met and about the rides that I took. However, things are changing. After 3 excellent years, now I'm hearing scandals, bad news, like cases of sexual harassment, disrespectful commercials, excessive pricing, industrial espionage. What's going on with my company? I am losing the pride that I used to have for my job. And I don't want to be a bad example for my kids. This really worries me. But I don't want to lose hope, because I got a call from these people 6 months ago, and they came up with a proposal that it was very challenging and compromising. They said, you want to help us for 6 months and tell us what's going on, what will help you. And I said, of course, I want to make Uber a better place. So yeah, I am very glad. I think this company with enough consulting, I'm gonna fall back in love with Uber. So now let's take a quick look about my company, the fantastic company with a ton in numbers. 700 cities almost, provides a unique service, and we're probably the first one providing this service. 40 million active users per month, my customers, and then it was valued in $69 billion by Bloomerang.
Thank you, Ercuden. However, not everything that glitters is gold, and we have realized that there are several issues hindering Uber's potential. We have classified them in 3 different categories: sexism, dubious practices, and aggressive competition. About sexism, we have realized that there are several cases of sexual harassment, and in fact there are 215 legal claims for that. However, we are aware that other companies face the same problems as Uber, but we are worried about how these cases are being handled inside the company. Moreover, there are commercial campaigns that have sexist elements, like the hot chick promotions in France in the city of Lyon. Secondly, the dubious practices. There are several practices that are against passengers, drivers, and authorities that are dubious and that are fostered and encouraged inside the company. Those are the cases of rival and the misclassification of the employees. And last, the aggressive competition. There are behaviors and actions that have a kind of competition which is aggressive with its rivals, and those are the cases of the Waymo versus Uber case that my colleague will explain after, and the theft of trade secrets, and the competitors' boycott. So now my colleague Pepe is the legal expert and will explain everything to you.
Thank you, Alba. Well, in order to get a deeper grasp of the issues stated by Alba, we consider it important to talk about 3 representative cases. First of all is the Susan Fowler case. Secondly is the Grable case. And last, the Waymo versus Uber battle. Let's start with the first one, related with the sexism. The Susan Fowler case is based on the story of Susan Fowler, an ex-engineer at Uber, who alleged that her former manager propositioned her for sex. And not only that the human resource team didn't do anything because he was a top performer. After that, the number of women working in Uber dwindled to 6%, and now Uber is facing more than 215 legal claims on sexual harassment, discrimination, and retaliation. Second case, Grable. This case is based on the use of a software called Grable to obscure the location of the Uber drivers in order to evade authorities in which the Uber service is banned. For example, Portland, state of Oregon. Third case is Waymo versus Uber. This case is based on the theft of trade secrets denounced by Waymo, and the allegation of this company goes in the following way. 3 Google employees stole trade secrets from Waymo. One of these employees, called Anthony Lewandowski, created its own company called Otto. This company was absorbed in August 2016 by Uber, creating an access for this company to access to these trade secrets downloaded by Anthony Lewandowski. But let's move forward and talk about the consequences of these issues, specifically on a 3-dimensional basis: legal, economical, and ethical. I'm going to start with the legal analysis of the issues presented before. First of all, with respect to the sexism, we have analyzed the conduct, and we have come to the conclusion that sexist activities like the one presented before can derive in claims about sexual harassment, discrimination, retaliation, and also in crimes like the one described here in the California Penal Code section 243.4 about sexual harassment. The response of the company to this type of actions and conduct has been to create a class action waiver forcing the employees to go to the confidential arbitration procedures. This has created an image of that there is no incentive to fix what is broken. Secondly, the obstruction of justice that can be produced through the Grable technology. It is defined in the California Penal Code section 148, and it has produced a source of reaction in Uber. Uber has not denied using Grable to evade authorities, but also that this has created a kind of negative impact on its reputation and image on the media. Last but not least, we're going to talk about the theft of trade secrets, the Waymo versus Uber battle. Conducts like this one can create some responsibility for the company of the crime of theft of trade secrets described on the California Penal Code section 499C. We have prevailed this, and we have come to the conclusion that the high cost related to the settlement is going to create a problem in the loss of ownership, because the payment of a settlement is going to imply some sort of transfer of shares, and a high cost related with the pay of this settlement that is calculated around 250 million. And now let me introduce you to Javier, who is going to talk about the economic consequences of the issues presented before.
Thank you, Pepe. So once we've analyzed all the conducts and the different legal implications that they have, let's see what is the consequences of these lawsuits. Specifically, we have made some predictions based on the law and on the presence that we have on the justice to calculate how much are they going to have to pay, or how much it's going to cost Uber the different lawsuits that they are involved. Here you have all the quantities, and we have estimated and predicted that it's going to cost around $410 million all of these lawsuits, which is not a small quantity, as you can see. But it's not only this, because it will also have all the consequences for Uber that it's mainly related to the and impacts their reputation. As a matter of fact, the sexual harassment cases impacts on the security that current and future employees have with the company. They also impact, in the case of Grable, and it's going to affect and negatively affect on their business model and their relationship with their authorities. And also in the case of Waymo, it's going to affect them in projecting a dishonest image. So people are not going to believe Uber when they see something. So related to what is the market impact that all of these issues have had on Uber's market, it is very hard to predict. Why? Because it is not a publicly traded company. So to predict it, what we have done is to hire a consultant company which is named CG42, and that has made a survey all along the United States with Uber drivers. With these Uber drivers, we have come to these results. 81% of the Uber drivers are aware of at least one scandal that has happened in the past 3 years. And also the negative perception about Uber has increased from 9% pre-news to 27% post-news. We also have that 26% of their customers are looking for alternatives to Uber. And in fact, 4% of them have already made the change. This change has mainly benefited Lyft, that is the principal competitor for Uber, and that has retained most of these customers, and of course the money related to this. And taking into consideration the different numbers that we've seen, we have calculated that this is going to cost Uber around $700 million for the next 1 year and a half that are going to be at risk because of all these scandals. So now, Alba.
Thank you, Javi. So after the legal and economical analysis, we jump to the ethical analysis. In order to do a proper ethical analysis, we have gone through several schools of ethics, and we have decided that virtue ethics is the best and the ideal school that fits for our purpose. Based on virtue ethics, we have developed a framework based on the 3 dimensions: the person, the company, and the society. And we think that it is an integral approach that allows us to analyze the action of the person in all the 3 dimensions. First, in the dimension of the person, we think that the most important thing is to question whether if the action makes the person better, and if it makes the person a virtuous person. And the thing is that a person, when performing an action, has to question himself, how do I become when performing this action? Secondly, the company. In the dimension of the company, it is important to question and to research if the repercussion that the action has inside the company, and how the action contributes to the person, and secondly, how the company encourages the virtues of their employees. And third, society. The analysis focus on here how the action and the company contribute to the common good of society, and secondly, how the action contributes positively to the professional practices of the person. So after having set up the framework, we proceeded to categorize and abstract the actions that my colleague has explained before, and we have come up to this result. Before jumping into the result, we want to say that we think that these actions, far from being isolated, represent a representative example of what is going on in Uber, because those type of actions are widespread and recurrent in the culture of Uber. So in the case of the sexism, more concretely the Susan Fowler case, we see that this action goes against the dignity of the victim and also produces a loss of autonomy on the victim. And it also perpetuates a lax attitude inside the company and creates stigma and division in society for the victim and the other victims of sexism in the workplace. Second, in dubious practices, like the Greyval case, we want to highlight that these type of practices worsen the working environment because they create tension and distrust, and they harm the effort culture by projecting the idea that anyone can do anything to achieve their goals. And lastly, for the aggressive competition, the Waymo versus Uber case, we believe that these kind of actions break the equilibrium between external and internal goods because they prioritize the economic profit over everything else. And lastly, they damage the professional practices because they don't project a clear and good example of how a professional has to behave. So, Javi?
Okay, thank you, Alba. Now we've seen the analysis of the ethical, economical, and legal part. So, for us, what is the root of the problem? We have come to 2 roots of the problem. First of all, the leadership style, and secondly, the corporate culture. With respect to the leadership style, I want to make a reflection here. In most of the companies, the tech companies that have risen in the last years and that have had a great success, becoming the most successful companies nowadays, as for example Facebook and Apple, we've seen that the story of success is linked between the leader and creator with the company's success. For example, in Apple we have Steve Jobs, and with Facebook we have Mark Zuckerberg. But what happens here when the leader is not setting the right tone? In this case, what we've seen is that what Uber is projecting is a pugnacious approach to business. Also, there is a continuous floating in the local laws, and finally, they are criticizing competitors. So, is this really the type of leadership that embraces all of this, the one that you want to have for your company? Secondly, the corporate culture. Here's where we want to focus our action plan and the message that we want to introduce into Uber. So when we started to analyze Uber, we saw that they had a very empty and corporate culture. Why? They had, the only thing that they had were 14 values. These 14 values were named by its CEO, Travis Kalanick, on a company retreat that was held in Las Vegas in 2015, but he named them. He didn't define any of them. What is the problem with this? That they have the risk of becoming harmful. Harmful in the way that a principle might be interpreted in the good way or in the wrong way. For example, let's analyze the principle of always be hustling. This principle has, this principle might be interpreted as do whatever it takes to, even if it's immoral, to obtain the result, or it might be interpreted as be creative, always find new ways, and always inside the ethics. We also have that there is a complete lack of instruments where employees or other stakeholders might come to see where and answer questions and see how should they perform. And finally, we have impunity. There is no consequences for the actions that employees commit. They need to know what happens and what type of discipline the company takes when they commit a wrong action. And nowadays, there is nothing about this in Uber. So, what is our proposal? Our proposal is, and our starting line for this solution is that we want to focus on the framework of the virtue of ethics. This means we want to focus